The way to get rid of tension is to do just the opposite of all the things that cause it.
Hello everyone, this is Hugo from Ichiban Painting, and today I'll be covering a couple of things on introduction in the airbrush world. I just realized that in my series where I talked about how an airbrush functions and everything, I didn't really cover the first steps you're gonna be doing when you just got your airbrush, right? So the first thing that you should know when you get your airbrush is you need to dilute your paint, right? Airbrushes don't like to run with really thick paint. So the first thing you're gonna need is that the paint you're gonna be using, if you're using Vallejo or if you're using P3 or if you're using even GW, those paint won't run straight up in the airbrush. Except if you have like a 0.5mm or 0.6mm airbrush, then you can run it straight through. But if you have a normal airbrush like a 0.3, a 0.1, or this one now it's set up to be a 0.4 millimeter, it's not gonna go well through. It's gonna clog up your airbrush and actually it won't function properly. So you're gonna need, if you're running those colors, you're gonna need either a thinner or you're gonna be needing some water. I'm sorry guys if I sound a little bit strange. I'm running under the weather a little bit. Feeling crappy like for 3 days now. But anyway, so you're gonna be needing thinner or water or some kind of a medium. Some people use Windex. I don't like that though. What I do, my cleaner, is I buy the Vallejo thinner, and what I do actually is that when I put my thinner in this bottle, I run half. So I put half of the thinner and half of the half of water, 1-to-1 ratio. Why? Because this thinner is actually like a little bit of liquid white paint, so it does take out a little bit of the color. So by running a little bit more water into it, I like it like that. So let's go and see what kind of mix you should do. So you have two techniques on. Let me see if we're still in. Yes. So we do have two techniques. Hold on a second. Okay. We do have two techniques that that you can use to put your paint in your airbrush and dilute it. You can do it in a mixing cup and then after that put it in. I personally don't like that way because it's just messy and stuff like that, but it does give better results. The way I like to use is put it straight up in the cup and mix it in inside. The problem that can happen when you do it and put it in straight up in the cup is that you can sometimes have a concentration or a depot of paint and it's not that great. A lot of people say that the consistency should be like milky consistency, and they should say the ratio should be 1-to-1 or things like that. Don't trust that. Okay, you need to do it with your own judgment. Why? Because each paint is different. If you take for example Vallejo Night Blue is really liquid paint, or Vallejo Vallejo Bleach Bone is liquid paint, and if you take an ultramarine blue like this, it's actually really thick. So basically you need to eye it out, and the more you're gonna get used to airbrushing, the more it's gonna be easier for you. So me, when I mix it straight up in the cup, the first thing I do is I put some thinner in it, and I eye it out because I've been doing it for a while, so I know almost exactly how much paint and how much thinner I need to put. But I put it straight up in the cup, but I put the thinner first. Why? Is because if you're using a paint that's thick like the ultramarine blue right now, it's gonna go up all the way up in the cup, right? And this cup, you have your needle in the middle, which means that if this paint goes inside, when you use the little stirring thing to stir it out, that won't hit that paint because it's gonna be under the needle. So I always put the thinner first, and then I put my paint in it, and I try to put it on the side of the cup, as you can see now, so it doesn't go like I just said in the bottom. And then what I do is I work it out with my my mixing thing, and then I mix it up in the cup straight away like this. And you see now this is too thick. You put it on the side, it doesn't go down. Okay, so that's a little bit too thick. So what I want to do is when I check my mix like that, when I just do it, I just want to add up a little bit more thinner and take my mixing thingy. I use a cut Q-tip, and then I just run it on the side and check consistency is still a little bit thick, but I do know that I'm running a big needle, so I can run it that way. So you really need to start out. The first things you want to do when you get your airbrush is actually test out your paint and see what kind of mix that you should be using and what works best for the paint that you're actually using, and because it's different from each paint, and it's a really technical thing, but you're gonna get used to it. The second thing you want to do, hold on a second, let's set up the camera, is you want to actually, okay, we're good. You want to actually try out your airbrush and try out different pressure rating. Okay, hold on, I'll put my mask on. I'm gonna try to talk as loud as I can, but you know, it's hard. And what you want to do is try to go in and do basic lines. And you want to just like start out and work your thing out. So you see that right now what I'm using, and I'm using a really light trigger pull. I don't push on my trigger a lot compared to if I go like this and I do my line. So you want to just test out the way your action and your trigger moves. So you see that here I did a line using almost no air. Remember that when you press on the airbrush, that's your air coming out, right? So if you push lightly and then pull, you're gonna have a really fine and light line, like so. So what you want to do is you just want to start practicing your trigger and realize that, you know, like right now, if I use my trigger full on, that's the kind of line I do. If I go gently on my trigger, then I can have a little bit more precise pull. So then the only thing you want to do when you start out like this is just have fun with your airbrush and just like realize and see how you can you know, operate the airbrush and how the movement to it, because you know, since you have a cup here, you cannot start jiggling your airbrush everywhere. You still need to keep your airbrush pretty straight like this. Even though you move it, you see my cup is still always at the same level even though I'm moving it. So you need to start getting familiar to the angle and how can you hold your airbrush, sorry, to be able to control it and not having paint flying off of the airbrush. But that's the first thing you want to do, is to start, you know, working it out. Then after that, the second part you can want to try out is, for example, if you're going to be doing you know, bigger vehicles and stuff like that, then what you want to do is take a straight paper, and I would suggest a paper like this. This is an old schedule that do have some line like this on it. So what you want to do is then with those lines you want to go in and try to hit the line with the airbrush, so you know, and you get used to precision and the placement of your needle, because this is not like a pencil, right? When you're using your airbrush, you have, you know, it's you have to know that if you're holding it in this angle, it's going to spray there. In the beginning you might want to spray there, but you're going to end up spraying here. So you have to get used to it and how it functions and how, you know, how to use it. By using this technique, you're actually practicing pre-shading. Pre-shading is exactly that. Pre-shading, you're going to have a white base coat, like for a tank, you're going to have a white primer coat. And then after that, you're going to go in with some darker colors, and you're going to do that around the contours of area you want to shade. Or you can do highlighting like that. For example, I'm not going to do it on that, but if you have a dreadnought, the body, and you want to do that one is black, and you want to do some highlighting, you're going to use your airbrush and you're going to hit those hedges there. So by practicing and by knowing where your airbrush is situated and how to work with it, of course right now I don't have a setup for that. My needle is really big, so this is really fine work, but
you still, you know, you want to practice and know where your airbrush is shooting, and how can you you know, improve your technique, especially if you're running a bigger needle, and especially when you start. That the starting point is the best. Don't get too close, because if you get too close, you're gonna have this. This is really bad. So distance wise, you should at least have 1 inch from where you work. If you an inch and a half is still doable, but you have a lot of concentration. You see, I had the same trigger pull right now on my airbrush. This I have a big concentration of color, and here's a little bit more smooth. So of course, the farther away you're gonna have, the farther you're gonna have a nice shade. Like for example, here, if I'm here, you know, I'm almost full pull, and then if I go here full pull, I'm dead on. So you want to start practicing like this and getting used to your trigger, getting used to how your airbrush works and how you can use it. Then what you want to do, also you can practice, is practicing some shading. So what you want to do is that you want to, for example, color an area like here, color it to its full color, right? And then what you want to do, sorry, my airbrush is clogging up. That's another thing. When you shoot acrylic, you need to, you know, not talk too much and do your job, because it's not gonna work. And another thing is that when you're shooting on paper, it does that. Okay, so don't worry about that. Paper is really hard to shoot. And then what you want to do is you want to start working out a shadow transition with this, you know. So I'm really sorry, it must look like crap right now since the airbrush is actually not working right. But you want to work in, again, bear in mind I'm doing this really fast and I'm talking and I'm not taking my time. But it gives you an idea of how you can do it. And you want to work in and practice transition. So basically you have really dark color going into a fade. So imagine if you have another color, like for example here, normally we would have 2 different tones of blue, then we would have a nice transition because the undertone of blue would be under it there, so you would have a nice shading. So basically these are some little tricks that you can do when you just got your airbrush. So get used to using your airbrush, get used to cleaning your airbrush. That's also really important right now. I'm gonna do another video because I never did a thorough video on how to clean an airbrush. But I hope you like it. I hope you can enjoy your new airbrush and have really nice results. If you like the video, click down on the bottom and subscribe. And I'll see you on the next video. See you guys.